Okay, hi everyone. Today going to be doing some installing of Ubuntu server. For this video we're going to be installing Ubuntu 18.04 long-term support release, which is the current long-term support release. There is a new one coming out for 2020, but for this we're just going to be installing 18.04. And when the new one comes out, I might update this. Okay, so for the first thing we're going to do is go to the Ubuntu website. You come to the Ubuntu website, you go to the downloads, and then Ubuntu server you can see here. This will take you to the page. You don't really need to be kind of filling out any of this stuff here. It will just start downloading. We save the file, we can see that it's an ISO file. I've actually already downloaded this, so we'll just move to the next step. I'm going to be installing this in a virtual machine, and so first of all what we need to do in this is make sure that we've got the file that we downloaded is set up in the CD-ROM. Now you may be doing this on a real machine, in which case you'll need to write this disk image to a USB drive, and I'll have a separate video showing you how you can do that, which I may link up here on the top left. Okay, but this is all set up. It's going to boot into the CD drive with the CD image. So all we need to do now, hopefully, is just start this machine up, and we should start seeing the Ubuntu server boot system. I'm going to make this a bit bigger. Okay, so this is the first page you'll see of the setup process, and first of all it wants to ask you what language. This will be the language for the installation setup process, but it will also set the language of the server operating system at the end as well. So for us, we're just going to select English using the cursors for this and just pressing enter. The next page is offering us to update the installer. So it's detected that there is a newer version of the installer available. Because we have an active network connection, it's able to just download this and we can make use of the newer installer. We are going to do that, so I'm going to select update to newer installer. It'll download this now, and then once it's downloaded it will restart the installer, and we'll move on to the next step, which is selecting a keyboard. So if I come up to here, I can see that it's defaulting to English US. I do want to change this because I'm going to be using a UK region. So when you set up the keyboard, it also sets up a lot of regioning information, so it's important to set this correctly. I'm going to select English UK, hit done. And now it's the network connections. So in this virtual machine, I set it up with one network interface. And if we scroll up here, we can see that it's named ENS3, and it's an Ethernet connection. By default, it's collecting a DHCP4 address, which you can see it has received an address. But if we go into the network connection, we can look at the information for that. We can configure the IPv4 and IPv6 manually, and we can also add a VLAN tag if you're operating on a network with VLANs. So very nice there, but for this we're actually just going to accept the DHCP for convenience, but let's have a look at the IPv4. So if we come in here, We can change this from, you can see it says DHCP, but we can set a manual, where we can set our subnet, our address, our gateway, DNS servers, and domains. Let's cancel out of that. Okay, moving on to the next. Oh, before I move on, you can also set up more advanced kind of bits and pieces as well, like bonding Ethernet network cards together. So we can create like load balancing across multiple network cards. Again, we've only got one network card here, so we're just going to skip that for now. Okay, next page is proxy address. So if your network has a proxy server and you need to configure an HTTP proxy, you would configure the address of your proxy server here. I don't, so we move on to the next stage. So this is for the mirror servers are for downloading software onto the server. These are the repositories, and you can see here under the mirror address it's detected that we're in the UK, and it's found the local repository address for this, but you can put in a different one if you prefer. On the next page we get to configuring the disk drives. So the first option here is to use an entire disk, and you can see here that it's detected the single disk that's in here, and if we have multiple disks we could select the disk that we wanted to install to here. We can also checkbox this if we wanted to configure LVM or Logical Volume Manager, which we won't cover in this video. So you could, but if you select this, it will basically set up the partitions needed as logical volume groups and volumes. And you can also, if you do this, encrypt the volume using so that you would essentially need to put a password in to decrypt the volume whenever you turn this machine on. Yep, so that's nice and easy to set up. We're not going to do LVM for this. And then below we've got this custom storage layout. If we select this and go forward, we will be able to set up our own partitioning scheme for the disk. I'll just show you that page. So here we've got one disk. It says it's currently got two partitions in because I already ran through part of the setup on this before, but if it's a new disk it wouldn't have any partitions. We can delete existing partitions. Just got rid of all of those partitions. So here, because we configured LVM, we can create new volume groups, create the encrypted volumes, and we can set all those up here. Oops, let's go forward again. And here we can actually start putting partitions on here. So for example, we can say we want 10 gigabytes. Well, we can make this ext4, XFS or BTRFS. We can create our swap volume, or we can leave unformatted. So for this, actually, let's create ourselves a 2 gig swap volume. Create that. then we can add another partition. We can make this 10 gig. ext4, mount that at root. Create. And we've got about 3 gig, just under 3 gig remaining. So if we add another one, we can say 2.5 ext4, actually btrfs or xfs, and we can put that at home. Let's save our. So you can see, you can set up, and at the top here you can see all of the partitions that we're creating. But I'm actually going to reset that and go back, and we're just going to use the entire disk in this case. Okay, it gives you a summary of what you're doing. So in this case, it's just going to create a single partition at the root. And if we go done, it asks, are you sure? Because this will make change to your partitions on your disk drives. So go continue, yes, it'll write that out. And now we get some personalization information. So server's name, so this is the host name. Pick a username and a password. And hit done. Okay, so we now move into the stage where it's basically we can start installing some additional software during the setup of this server. The first one is installing OpenSSH. We definitely want to do this so we can remotely connect to the server. You can also import identities, so SSH keys and all that sort of stuff. And then the next page gives us a few additional packages that we can install on the server. So we're not going to install this at the moment, but there's lots of nice useful bits and pieces like installing Docker immediately. So when the server comes up, it'll already have whatever it is here that you want to have installed already set up. So we're not going to install anything, and we're just going to go ahead, and it's now actually doing the installation. Okay, so this might take a few minutes, so I'm just going to pause the video here and we'll return once this is all done. Okay, that's now completed, and you can see, if you want to see kind of what it did, then there is a kind of log of what it did, and we can view the full log, or we can just reboot. So if you hit any problems along the way, then you can view the log and maybe try and fix those. But this installed successfully, so we just go ahead and reboot, and it will start. We need to take out the USB drive. Otherwise it will just boot back into the USB drive. So come back here and hit enter, and it should install into the actual server. Okay, and there we are. We get a bit of setup output. So at the top of there you can see it's setting up the SSH server, creating the keys. If we just hit enter after that, we get our login prompt. We can use the login we specified during the installation. Give it the password. And there we go, logged in. This is the kind of welcome page for the server. It gives us some nice useful information. You can see our IP address there, the amount of free space we've got on the root drive. So we're currently using 26% of our root drive, using 8% memory, no swap. And it's telling us that we've got 21 packages that can be updated. So even though the setup program did some updates kind of during the setup, there's usually also some additional updates that are available as well. This screen you get, the welcome to Ubuntu, you get every time you log in to the server. And so I think this is pretty much the server is set up. I might then do a follow-up video of the first things to do after you've installed your Ubuntu server. Okay, so if you've liked the found this video useful, please let me know. Just give it a like or leave a comment. I'm going to try and upload more videos as often as I can, and if you want to know when new videos are updated, then you can subscribe to the channel. Okay.